more than 20 different cities and towns that make up the Phoenix metro area. And as we have exponentially grown over the last few years, parts of the desert are now becoming parts of the Phoenix metro area. We just keep growing out further and further. Look, I'm going to talk about the top 5 places that people call home and why in the greater Phoenix area, coming at you right after this. I think we would all agree that everybody wants something a little bit different. And what I always say is there's a buyer for every house and a house for every buyer. So how do you figure out what works best for you? There's definitely certain things that carry more weight in everyone's criteria. So let's turn to niche.com to tell us what the top 5 cities or towns are in the greater Phoenix area. And let me share with you what my input is on those 5. Starting at number 5 is going to be none other than Gilbert, Arizona. Gilbert has been in the news since since 2000, I have to say. That's probably right when they really started to become a town that was really becoming something. Let me tell you, 20 years ago, there was no businesses in the downtown. You knew you had to drive through that town super slow or you're going to get pulled over. The police were extremely tight. There was nothing out there other than a few, farmhouses and a lot of farmland. Well, today it's one of the most prosperous towns in America. It has been rated the 2nd safest place in America. It is now number 12 because it's grown from 50,000 people to almost 276,000 people in 2023. And let me tell you, there's still a lot more land to be developed. So I'll tell you, Gilbert, although it was once a little tiny town, has now turned into a thriving metropolis. It is becoming entertainment district. It is becoming restaurant district. It is becoming not quite nightlife yet. It's literally coming. The massive parks that are here. The schools are moderate. If you ask me, they're not A+, they're about B. But the overall, when you look at the totality of the livability, I can see why Gilbert comes in at number 5. And it would be higher if it was more affordable, as it is becoming quite pricey. But Gilbert is definitely a place to look if you are looking for the very well-rounded lifestyle with everything. Number 4 is an area called Desert View. You probably really haven't heard of Desert View, or you don't know to search for Desert View, but this particular area is going to be just west of North Scottsdale Carefree, or directly north of North Phoenix. And the reason I say North Phoenix in air quotes like that is the more common area that people are familiar with is called Desert Ridge. Now, let me tell you, I remember 20 years ago when there was nothing up this way and you felt like you were driving out in the middle of nowhere. And they were building this place called Desert Ridge that now has absolutely everything. Great social environment, amazing freeway access, amazing employers, entertainment, and this is for all ages. This is also for singles, young professionals. This is for older professionals. This is for families. This is for retirees. Desert Ridge is a hot spot. And so now as that becomes more populated, what's next? The next level, and that would be going just a little bit further north, and that is Desert View. Desert View is all of those great things minus. What I mean by minus, it has less nightlife, so it's not as highly rated as nightlife. It has better views, though, if you ask me. The housing is a little bit more affordable, believe it or not. According to niche.com, amazing public schools, good for families. It is decent for housing and okay for nightlife, entertainment, and diversity. I have to say that the majority of the greater Phoenix area has a lot of room for improvement on diversity. But as we are starting to see more and more technology and semiconductor and renewable energy employers coming to other parts of the greater Phoenix area, like in the Northwest, we're going to see that diversity increase. Right now, the vast majority of diversity, if that's super important to you, is going to be found in the Southeast Valley, kind of more towards Chandler and Tempe. That didn't make the top 5 list, although Chandler was at 6, just to let you know. All right, so back to number 4 at Desert View. I like the name too because I feel like it's an accurate representation of what it is. It's a little further out in the desert and you have mountain views. If you haven't thought about Desert View area, definitely check it out because there's a lot to be rewarded if you don't mind being a little bit outside of town. Coming in at number 3 is going to shock you. Shock you. It shocked me. Are you ready? Number 3 is a town called Florence. You've probably never heard of it. No one spoke of it even just a few years ago. And the only reason people are talking about it now is, honestly, it's primarily one thing: housing and diversity. Housing is cheap as it relates to the greater Phoenix area. It's not like super cheap compared to the entire country, but you can buy homes in the $200,000 price point in Florence. And one of the things that it gets the highest rating on is diversity, what I just talked about. Now, Florence has predominantly been 2 things to the greater Phoenix area. It actually hasn't been anything to the greater Phoenix area. It's outside of the greater Phoenix area, but it's now being considered part of the greater Phoenix area. Anyways, the 2 positive things about Florence is that housing is affordable. I wouldn't say cheap. It's affordable. And the diversity is much higher in this area. And we ask why. Well, this is predominantly in the middle of the desert and also farming communities. So we have a lot of farmers or ranchers or people that work on the ranches and farms that call Florence home. So that's going to increase the diversity rate, which is really very nice. It does have a relatively low crime rate. It has a moderate to null nightlife. I have to tell you, honestly, there's really nothing out here in the town of Florence. There is a cute little downtown that has a couple of cute little stores. If you are looking for that wild, wild west, let me tell you, when I first moved here in the 90s and I drove, there was no such thing as Santan Valley, to be honest with you. But when we drove out to Queen Creek at that time, that's what this felt like, kind of almost like a ghost town. That you look around and you're like, why are the builders building here? And let me also add 2 biggest things about Florence. Number 1 is the state's largest country music festival is held in Florence, Arizona every year. That is called Country Thunder. And that started 25 plus years ago in Arizona. It used to only be a couple thousand people. Now it's a couple 100,000 people over a weekend. It's insane what that's become. It's and the people that attend it are just insane too. And number 2 comes in an area in the city of Phoenix called Ahwatukee. Ahwatukee is an area, a neighborhood. It is not a city, and it's comprised of 3 different zip codes. So it's really hard to look online to find homes in Ahwatukee. So it's 85044, 045, and 048. You know, O is a letter, 0 is a number, for those of you who are correcting me. Anyways, these particular 3 zip codes at one time was kind of a cul-de-sac because there was only one way in and one way out. They used to call it the world's largest cul-de-sac until they built the South 202 loop. And let me tell you, the people that lived in Ahwatukee, there was such huge opposition. It was just interesting how they came up with exactly what you could put: a higher crime rate, more pollution. Those were the reasons. And for those reasons, they did not win, and the freeway system went in. And let me tell you, the values of those homes went up exponentially as soon as the 202 freeway went in. It made it so much more accessible and more desirable because as many people that loved living in this cul-de-sac, more people didn't. And now that you have this open freeway, there was a much higher demand, especially the mountain views are insane. And there's more than 31 different trails. In fact, I myself have hiked from rim to rim. It's a total of 17 miles in one day. I barely could walk the next day, but because it's different when you're walking on hard, like it's not even sand. It's like not concrete, but it's hard desert. South Mountain is actually the nation's largest public park that's owned and operated by a city. It is absolutely beautiful. There's two different sides to the mountain, and the housing on the north side is very different than the south side. So property values are almost half, and there's a reason for that, which I'm not going to cover in this video. You'll have to watch one of my other videos. But on the south side, it's a very coveted area. Very high-end real estate. The closer you get to the mountain, lots of entertainers and lots of athletes live in this area. Fantastic schools. It's just a very outdoor lifestyle. If you like walking your dog, if you like walking the trails, if you're kind of, I don't want to say hippie, but if you like just kind of that chill, eclectic lifestyle, Ahwatukee is a great place for you. The views are outrageous, but here's one thing to consider. One of the highest concentrations of scorpions in your home or area are going to be in Ahwatukee. You're going to see more critters here than probably most areas in the greater Phoenix area. That's the only problem about you're up against nature, and therefore you have nature in your yard. All right, number one. Number one is booming. And this area is called North Gateway, according to niche. This area is also called Norterra when you're looking at real estate. And if you ask why, it's because we are seeing, first of all, housing is much more affordable over there. You now have a lot more entertainment kind of things, although the restaurants are still only 1 star and 2 stars, so they still have a lot of room to improve there. But here's the great thing that's going on. Taiwan Semiconductor is opening up just west of Interstate 17 and where 303 connects. And this particular area is just on the east side of 17. And I have to tell you, whether you're talking resale at Fireside or some of the new construction over at Norterra, it is unbelievable. The homes out there, the common area is beautiful. The mountain views are outrageous. And so when we're looking at public schools with an A rating, we're looking at the value for your home at about an A minus. Great for families, great for, I don't think I would give it a great for young professionals. I think for retirees. And the reason I say that again is because the nightlife and entertainment in this area still has not kind of stepped up. Here's what I saw a lot of the March through June timeframe. When I would visit over this area, the families, the parents, they still love to go out and party and have a great time. And so there's a lot of neighborhood hanging out or hanging out at the pool. People are not drinking and driving, but they're drinking and hanging out. The kids are involved. A lot of people in this area have some of the utility vehicles or golf carts. So teens that don't drive can still kind of cruise around. There's a lot of boating up in this area, a lot of off-road vehicles and that kind of fun. The diversity, because of the employment that's coming into the area, is starting to really catch up there. The crime rate in this area, even though niche doesn't have, is relatively low because, again, it's kind of a new area and they don't really have a lot of data. If you go back 5 years, there was hardly any homes in this area. So all the neighborhoods are relatively new. Again, it's more of a family partying kind. I don't know if that word comes across weird. I'm pretty sure it does. But hopefully for those of you, if you like Halloweens where you get to go walk around with your sippy cups and you get to hang out with the kids and hang out with all your neighbors, this is the part of town that's starting to happen. All right, guys. Norterra has their different ways of rating, A, B, or C, but I have to tell you, these are some of the most talked about areas that I just covered. Even Florence, a lot of people are bringing that up because of the affordability. If you are thinking about moving to the greater Phoenix area, I'll give you my honest opinion. You just got to give me a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Days, nights, or weeks, we got your back. Did I say days, nights, or weeks? I meant to say days, nights, or weekends. We got your back when moving to Phoenix, Arizona. Cannot wait to hear from you. Just pick up the phone today.